We got Chuck ready to go? Anybody? St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Washington, D.C. reporter Chuck Rouse. Chuck, welcome back to Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So you have read these 7,000 emails leaked by WikiLeaks and found Senator Claire McCaskill's name in them?
I haven't read all 7,000, but I did find a number of things of interest to St. Louis and our residents.
Yeah, let's first start with Senator McCaskill. What did you find there?
Well, it was an interesting exchange that she had on a couple of occasions. One was preparing for an ABC appearance on the Sunday morning show, and she talked a little bit about defending Secretary Clinton in a number of areas, including her use of emails.
Which is kind of interesting because Senator McCaskill and Hillary Clinton have had a frosty relationship from time to time.
Yeah, they had, but they've mended ways, and I think she's been one of her more outspoken and energetic surrogates in this campaign.
Yeah.
Senator McCaskill has.
Either one of them, both McCaskill and Clinton. I mean, there are no real smoking guns, right? There's nothing that is really embarrassing in these emails.
No, I think it lays a window to kind of how the how the whole operation works. The campaigns have surrogates. They get people out there. They try to, prep them before going in, giving them the latest. Senator McCaskill is usually pretty up on stuff, and I think she probably gives as much advice as she gets from the campaign. And I think that's in part what these things show.
Yeah. As for Secretary Clinton, the most fascinating stuff in your story was about how they were planning and plotting to respond to the Ferguson crisis.
Yeah, I think a lot of politicians around the country were in that same situation. If you remember, there was a window there where it had been announced that the decision was going to come out in a number of hours, and I believe they were just anticipating kind of what people were expecting. But as the story points out, they kind of got lost in the whole swirl that day, and when President Obama came out that night and gave the statement, it kind of put everybody else into a secondary position. She was then criticized because she didn't really respond, although they were talking about it. She didn't really respond in that milieu. She didn't really come out during that time, and it was like 10 days later when she came out and gave the speech. And by that time, people had been criticizing her for not saying, more about what was going on in Ferguson and about the grand jury's decision.
Are we getting? We don't know if we're getting all the emails or the full story. I mean, right? We're only getting bits and pieces of it, so we don't know the full scope of the conversation and or the decision not really to say anything for 11 days.
Right. I mean, that's part of the problem of this. You've got to caveat this, and we try to do this in the story. These are leaked emails by players that our intelligence communities think are connected to the Russians. And that's kind of been the Clinton campaign's defense on this then. You can't really trust this because you're not seeing the whole composite. But, boy, there's been an awful lot that have been out. The Washington Post this morning has a fascinating story about new emails that came out late yesterday that talk about the campaign's inner people, inner workers, talking about the fallacy or the problems in dealing with Secretary Clinton and her penchant for secrecy and not coming out and admitting when she was wrong. And it's pretty brutal and blunt language about these types of traits that a lot of people have seized on it to not like her.
Yeah, it's a really interesting article, and it's an interesting look at how the campaign, well, in some ways, was very angry with her for the email server and everything else. But Chuck, I've often joked, Podesta's email's hacked, Petraeus' email's hacked, the NSA, everyone's email's hacked except Hillary Clinton's private server. I think the world should be on Hillary Clinton's private server.
Well, there's 2 weeks left in the campaign. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there have been these threats, or however you want to describe it, as saying this isn't all. There's more stuff coming out, and this has been such a strange campaign to this point that nothing would surprise me in the next 2 weeks, and so. I would say just be braced for that type of thing, or don't be surprised if it does come out. I'm not saying it is. I have no inside knowledge, but just given the weirdness of this campaign all the way up to this point, including this tremendous leakage. If there hadn't been Donald Trump in this, can you imagine the impact of these
right.
in this election? If there had been a quote unquote traditional Republican candidate, these things would have had more tremendous impact. But Trump and all of the things that are swirling around him seems to trumpet, no pun intended, in ways that you couldn't have anticipated when these started coming out 3 or 4 months ago.
No, you're right. It's a valid point. However, I will say this: that if WikiLeaks had something that was really, really bad or really, really good, you wouldn't wait till this late in the campaign to get it done. You would get it out so that it could really work its magic.
I don't know if I agree with that. Remember what happened with George W. Bush in 2000?
With the drinking and driving thing?
The DUI. Remember when that came out?
Like the weekend before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was out there, and it was leaked.
Right.
So, I don't know if, I think you have an interesting point. Do I expect a great bombshell? From what I've seen so far, no. But it's sort of this sort of long-range toothache that the Clinton people have had to deal with. And I don't think it ends on November 8th that she's elected. If she's elected, I think you're going to continue to see it, into next year and into whatever administration if that she sets up in January of next year.
Yeah, Chuck Roush, St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter in Washington, D.C. Chuck, great job. Thanks for coming in. And don't ever disagree with me again. How dare you?
All right.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Chuck.
Thank
All
you.
right. You got it. Have a good day. 7:25. We'll do numbers. We'll do that next.